Greetings everyone, Dr. G here. Should you avoid learning music theory because it's going to hold you back? It's going to hinder your musical creativity. This is a subject that came up recently with another student. He wanted to expand his knowledge of music theory, but he was concerned by reports that it would actually be more of a detriment than a help. And he asked what my perspective on the matter was. During the course of the discussion, it reminded me of a passage that I had read about 20 years ago from a book of ancient Chinese philosophy called the Tao Te Ching by Lao-Tzu. And there's one verse in there, verse 12, that when I read it, it made me think and contemplate music theory. So I'm going to read this. And if you're going to scratch your head while you're listening to it and wonder how in the world this has anything to do with music theory, hang in there. I'll explain in a moment. This is a translation by Jonathan Starr. It reads, "The 5 colors blind the eye. The 5 tones deafen the ear. The 5 flavors dull the palate. Racing, hunting, and galloping about only disturb the mind. Wasting energy to obtain rare objects only impedes one's growth. So the sage is led by his inner truth and not his outer eye. He holds to what is deep and not what lies on the surface." So here's why this particular verse made me think about music theory. When you look at the beginning of this verse, it talks about senses, sight, sound, taste, and it also defines them as 5 colors, 5 notes, 5 different flavors or tastes. When you're dealing with music theory, which is really a system of music, theory sounds really cool and it sounds mystical in a way. It's not. It's a system. And there are many systems of music. Some that are ancient, some that are modern, some from different parts of the Western world, some from different parts of the Eastern world, all over the world, different systems. There is not one single system. There are systems that those who are self-taught have come up and conceived of on their own. So when somebody says, look at this musician, this person's not formally trained, listen to their music, listen to their playing, it's brilliant. They don't know music theory. That's not actually true. They might not know music theory in an academic or conventional sense, but every great self-taught musician whom I've ever met all still had a way of sorting things out and describing them. It was really their own theory, their own system. It wasn't like they were just completely oblivious to everything. Maybe their terminology might be different, but their system came out from them. It was something that they analyzed after the fact. And in that way, they were never trapped by it because their own inner source of creativity was what the foundation was. And then when they started to label things or analyze things, that was after, but it stemmed from within first. When you play music based on a system, and it's not from within you, you're learning a system, whatever it is, even if it's the most brilliantly devised system of music ever conceived of. If you're going to rely on that system to be creative and produce music, you will fail. You will fail every time because you're trying to do something that is impossible. You're looking for something that's outside of you, on the surface, external, to act in place of something that really truly comes from you, within yourself. Now, that doesn't make the system bad or problematic. A system can guide you to places and make you aware of things that you may not have ever been aware of before. And it can be incredibly useful for that. But you have to remember that if you're using this external system, you have to bridge that information and assimilate it, internalize it. It can't just remain on the surface in that way. And playing that system doesn't help either. Even if you have a lot of technique, a lot of chops, and you can whiz up and down the piano keyboard or the fretboard or what have you. That's still not really music. It's going to sound formulaic. It's going to sound predictable. You're going to get bored of it. That doesn't make the system inherently bad or useless. In fact, the system can bring awareness to things that you would have otherwise been completely ignorant of, and that can be incredibly useful. It's all about making sure that this system that's all definitions and terminology and symbols and all that you have to integrate that, assimilate that within yourself. Because your ideas musically, your creativity comes from within you. You are the music. It's not a separate thing. Music theory doesn't float around and then just magically inform you of what to play, or you have to think about something and play it, because you can't do that either. And that's one place that a lot of people get incredibly frustrated about, because when they're learning theories and learning about systems, they think that they can actually play at a moderate or a faster tempo and think consciously while they're doing it. You can't. And it doesn't have anything to do with a lack of experience or practice. You can practice that for 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 years. The outcome is going to be the same. The conscious mind is very slow, especially when measured against the subconscious mind. If you try to go and play and think at a tempo faster than about 65, maybe 70 beats per minute, you're going to stumble all over yourself. Much like you would if you were trying to think of the definitions of the words as you were saying them to someone in a conversation. It won't work. You can't talk like that. They have to become second nature. Now, how does that happen? You have to slow everything down. You have to be focused on consistency, on flow, on not forcing anything, on the foundational aspects, because the most sophisticated things are all based on those simple foundations. And if you ignore those foundations and you think of them as boring and uninteresting, you're going to have a big problem because everything else comes out of those basic concepts. So when you practice music theory, break it down into very simple, digestible bits. Focus on the fundamentals, go incredibly slowly, and shoot for accuracy and consistency. If you do that, your conscious mind, when you have to think, will be able to do it without compromising your pulse, your rhythm. And it will eventually transfer from your conscious mind into your subconscious mind. And from there, it becomes second nature and innate. You'll start to hear ideas, and you'll just automatically know where they are on the instrument. Things that you've never played before, never conceived of before. You just know where they are. You didn't have to work them out. You didn't have to analyze them. They're just there. In a way, you almost don't even know how you're able to do it because you're actually not even consciously doing it. Thanks for watching the video. If you have any comments, perhaps you've learned music theory in the past, maybe you've been frustrated, maybe you're one of those players, maybe you have found music theory to be incredibly helpful to you. Leave the comment below because I'm always interested in reading about others' experiences. So stay well, and I'll see you guys around soon.